Let's jump right in. Think for a second about your immediate social circles. Your friend groups, your workplace ecosystem, maybe even your extended family dynamics. Have you ever gotten this weird feeling that someone else was subtly but firmly drawing the borders of your relationships? Deciding who's safe, who's a threat, who's in, and who's out? Well, in this explainer, we're unpacking a highly sophisticated, honestly kind of invisible phenomenon that dictates the spaces we live in. We are exploring the cartography of social distortion. We're going to look at the fascinating ways our social landscapes are manipulated right under our noses, basically turning objective reality into a totally subjective theater.
So it really begs the question, who draws the map of your social reality? Seriously, I want you to think about that. When you walk into a new social circle, or you're trying to figure out the crazy politics of a new job, whose compass are you actually using to figure out the landscape? Because a lot of the time, without even realizing it, we're walking through a terrain that's been carefully pre-drawn for us by someone else. We just assume we're seeing people for who they actually are, but we might just be reading someone else's legend on a map we literally never asked for.
And that brings us to a foundational concept for our analysis today. The map is not reality. We're taking a really forensic approach here, because it is incredibly easy to mistake the lines drawn around individuals for their true, inherent character. But we have to set a firm baseline. The social dynamics we navigate every day, the whispers, the reputations, the group consensus, they're often just a map. It's a representation that is heavily biased by whoever is holding the pen, and it is emphatically not the actual terrain. If we want to understand social distortion, we first have to accept that our view of others is highly susceptible to tampering.
Section 1. The Relational Cartographer, Remapping the Social Terrain.
Okay, so to understand this map, we first need to look at the psychological archetype of the map maker, the specific highly influential person who holds that pen. We call this the relational cartographer. It's a person who attempts to remap social reality by inserting bias and ascribing unverified motives to others. They systematically inject their own personal biases into the social landscape, a lot of times targeting and labeling people they barely even know. Imagine dark ink deliberately spilling across a perfectly good map, right? Just obscuring the truth, shifting boundaries, and replacing the whole thing with a manufactured, distorted narrative. They aren't trying to understand the terrain, they're trying to own it. Section 2. The perceptual gatekeeper, controlling the flow of information. Because here's the kicker. Once this cartographer starts drawing, they don't just keep the map tucked away in their pocket. They evolve. They become a perceptual gatekeeper for the whole group. And here's exactly how they execute that control. First, they select facts. They cherry-pick only the pieces of information that fit their predetermined narrative and just ignore anything that contradicts it. Second, they manipulate the context to totally warp the meaning of those selected facts. And third, they assign roles. This is where it gets incredibly manipulative. They take their own assumptions, dress them up as supposed evidence, and assign strangers these fixed, unchangeable roles in a story they never consented to be in. They're systematically replacing observable facts with personal interpretations, locking people into boxes they didn't build. Section 3. Behavior versus attributed motive, distinguishing fact from fiction.
If you want to survive in a distorted social landscape, this is the exact skill you need to master. We have to ruthlessly separate observable behavior from attributed motive. Observable behavior is what actually happened, the undeniable facts. Like, did a coworker send an email at 5 p.m.? Yes, that is observable behavior. But attributed motive is what the cartographer claims that person intended. Did they send that email at 5 p.m. because they're secretly trying to undermine the team? That is an attributed motive. We must separate the two. Why? Because interpretation is absolutely not evidence. We cannot allow someone's creative map-making to be treated as an objective compass. The second you accept an attributed motive as a fact, you've stepped off the real terrain and right onto their distorted map.
Section 4. Engineering social consensus, spreading the distorted map. So, how does one person's warped, private map suddenly become the official geography for an entire community? Well, they don't just quietly misunderstand people, they actively engineer consensus. First, they do this by triangulating relationships, meaning they make themselves the necessary middleman, ensuring people communicate through them instead of directly with each other. Next, they convert their private assumptions into your public reputation, repeating their theories over and over until they sound like common knowledge. And finally, they pressure the whole group to navigate by this new map. By shifting borders and marking innocent people as threats, they literally demand that everyone else align their moral compass to this new, manufactured reality. I really want to pause here for a second, because this is a massive takeaway. Consensus is not necessarily truth. It is so easy to fall into the trap of thinking,
Well, everyone in the office feels this way about John, so it must be true, right? But if a relational cartographer has successfully pressured an entire group into agreeing on a distorted map, it does not magically make that map accurate. A shared engineered delusion is still a delusion. It is absolutely crucial to remember this when you feel that heavy psychological pressure to conform to a group's sudden negative perception of someone. The map might be popular, but it can still be entirely wrong.
Section 5. Reclaiming the pen, redrawing your own boundaries.
We've forensically mapped out the problem. We know the cartographer's methods. So how do we actually navigate out of this manipulation? Reclaim the pen. Redraw your own boundaries. You have to develop the acute awareness to recognize the exact moment when someone's subjective, biased assumptions are being peddled to you as hard evidence. When you see false boundaries being drawn around you or your peers, when you see identities being erased and replaced by caricatures, you have to actively refuse them. Refuse to navigate by a map drawn with malicious ink. You have the power to reclaim your identity, demand observable reality, and draw your own borders based on truth, not triangulation.
I want to leave you with this final, highly provocative thought to consider the next time you find yourself navigating a difficult social landscape. The most dangerous cartographer is not the one who misunderstands the terrain, but the one who redraws it and demands that everyone mistake the map for reality.